Hello, hello, hello. Right. How many people have we got in the room? So I think we've got about 11 people in the room, or 10 at the moment. Welcome, everybody. I hope you're all well. If you can, for now, just all mute yourself. That'd be absolutely brilliant. And if you have any questions during the presentation, you can digitally raise your hand and I'll bring you in at the end. So yeah, just a bit of housekeeping. If you haven't been on one of our calls before, we spent about 20 minutes going through a presentation. Today it's Stuart Colledge. I'm going to introduce Stuart in a minute. And basically it's really relaxed and informal. You can be as involved as you like, or if you prefer, you can shut down your camera, you can mute yourself, and you can just ask me questions and I'll forward them on to Stuart. Hello everyone, welcome to this ERG Roundtable event. Today it's 9 steps to successful digital transformation with Stuart Colledge. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us. My name's Sam, I'm a director with ERG. We're a tech recruitment and consultancy business. We help organisations to build and grow teams through our talent as a service solution. And we also partner with companies to help them overcome their specific business challenges with our boutique consultancy offering, CXO as a service, and project-based delivery, or outcome-based project delivery even. Stuart is my guest today. He'll be taking us through a brief presentation on what he feels are 9 key steps that any organisation should take when taking on a digital transformation project. Now, Stuart's someone with considerable experience. He started his career in the same year that Paul Gascoigne cried on a football pitch in Italy. Windows 3 came out in that year, and Tim Berners-Lee also publicised a formal proposal for the World Wide Web. That was 30 years ago, 1990. I can't believe that that's 30 years ago. I mean, look at this man. Can he really have 30 years experience in IT? I can't believe it. You started out as a graphic designer, Stuart, and you worked for Pfizer back in the day. And that was that an apprenticeship, was that right? Yeah, you're nodding. Okay, good. You then went on to work for a number of advertising and marketing companies, including Saatchi and Saatchi. You then moved into media and publishing. You worked as the IT manager for Northern and Shell back then, and then moved to one of their companies, which was Channel 5,
yes,
as the head of IT. Mm-hmm. That was 2010. And for the last 10 years, you've worked as a project manager, program manager, IT director, and a consultant. More recently, you worked for a company called Engine UK, who are a marketing and advertising company. There you help them deliver business transformation, rebranding, and you transition 13 companies with approximately 850 users.
That's correct. Well done.
Okay. You've led teams, you've conducted major transformation projects. If your mastermind subject, I think, would be World War II planes and the history of the Spitfire. Yeah. You're married with 2 daughters. If you take the names of your 2 daughters together, they spell Miami. And you went for an interview with McLaren by accident.
Yep.
Okay. This is true.
They did. They wanted to go on.
They wanted a different type of project manager, didn't they?
They did.
And I believe that they said, well, you know, we've just won the F1 trophy. Do you want to hold the trophy? You said no, because you were worried that you might drop it down the stairs.
Yes, that's true.
How was that for an introduction?
That was a great introduction. Thanks very much.
Good.
Wonderful.
Welcome along.
Thank you for inviting me.
No. It's an absolute pleasure. Do you want to just sort of tell us a bit more about that accidental interview with McLaren while I shared my screen?
That comes from the chief marketing, John Allett, who's their chief marketing officer down at McLaren now. But he and I were good friends at Interbrand, where I worked in the branding organisation, and he said, we need someone like you down at McLaren. But I think there's just like John didn't quite understand my full role back then, and I wasn't really a project manager. And it wasn't until I got into the office of one of the senior guys down at McLaren, and he said, oh yeah, we run a tight ship down here, and we've got about 100 projects on. And I said, I think I better stop you there because I'm not really your man. So it was a bit embarrassing, but they gave me a tour of the building after, which was nice.
Well, listen, thank you for joining us, Stuart. Really appreciate it. I always like to obviously make people feel welcome and give you a bit of an introduction. So hopefully that wasn't too over the top for you.
No, it's great. Thanks very much. Couldn't have done better myself.
Good. Excellent. Right. Okay. So we are recording today's roundtable. It will be hosted on our YouTube channel. There'll be a little bit of editing, probably remove my little fumbling at the beginning, but if you want to catch up and see any of these slides at any point, we will be able to send them to you on email, if that's okay, Stuart. And Stuart, you should now have control. I've made you a co-host. So have you got control? And just confirm that you can do things now.
Okay, let's have a look.
Everybody should be able to see the presentation.
I can see the presentation, right. Yes. But I can't, it's not, okay, I'm not controlling it at the moment.
Okay, I'm making you host now as we speak.
Right. No.
No? Okay, good. Brilliant. Right, well, listen,
Good start.
I'll tell you what, why don't you just, when you want to skip to the next slide, just say next slide, Sam.
Okay.
Next slide, Sam, and I'll just go straight on to the next slide. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Right. Okay. Yeah. So let's just go into the presentation. Let's go into the title. That's it. So I'm going to caveat this and just give you a little bit of background on the actual presentation. So 9 easy steps. I mean, the steps may be easy, but the implementation doesn't always necessarily turn out that way, and especially with my experience as well. We will go through those steps and we will explore some of the difficulties that you might come up against, and then obviously answer any questions at the end. So if we proceed into the next slide. So there's 5 common cited DX elements. And I've done quite a bit of research on this, and I came across a great article online from the Project Enterprise. And basically it cited these 5 major DX elements that people have, when surveyed, put together and said these are either some of the challenges or common things they want to achieve through a digital transformation. So it's very customer centric. So if we go number 1, the customer experience, what the demands of the customer are really important. A lot to do with culture and leadership, operation agility. So that to me is one of the goals of digital transformation. Businesses being able to achieve that business agility. And this is one of the buzzwords that is going around the industry at the moment. The workforce enablement, obviously you want the workforce pulling in the right direction, and you want them all united to actually deliver this digital transformation or any business initiative. And then technology integration at the bottom there, because technology, I think, and you'll see throughout the presentation, the technology element comes last. Next slide, Sam, please. So what is digital transformation? For me, and you can unwrap the different points, Sam. So aligning with customer needs, obviously aligning with one of the cited elements from the first slide. Strong culture leadership. You're not going to get a business transformation through the company unless you understand the culture and environments of the company, and you understand and have strong leadership, and you have strong leadership engagement. Business capabilities as well. You've got to know what your business capabilities are. There's a number of engagements that I've been in throughout my career where the companies are trying to deliver a business initiative, a project, a program, but they don't necessarily understand what their capabilities are. So they might under-resource it. They might be using BAU teams that aren't experienced. But so it's really vital that that companies look at their capabilities to be able to perform digital transformation, because there's risks around it, and obviously it's going to cost the money. Number 4, really important for me, is you're moving from a monolithic hairball of an infrastructure, and a lot of these companies have a monolithic infrastructure, enterprise architecture, which is what EA stands for. And you're moving it over to a more modernized enterprise architecture. This is a really important element of any business transformation and any business as a whole for sustaining agility moving forwards. And then obviously number 5, this is what underpins the reason for doing digital transformation: having strategic alignment and having strong strategic rationale which aligns to your vision and mission for your company. Next slide, please, Sam. So if you're going to unwrap the benefits down the screen and we go through them. So obviously you're going to be improving business communications just by carrying out these 9 steps. So you're going to be engaging with the company. Now, as a program manager, I use a framework called PMBOK, and number 1 on that framework is stakeholder management. You must have good communication and owned communication. And as a project manager with the various projects I've done, I've made sure that I haven't done any chucking over the fence or managing by email. I've owned that communication. So that's really important. Stronger culture and leadership. So this is a theme all the way through: strong leadership, engagement, not chucking stuff over the fence, combining that with point 1 and having that strong communication. Operation models and capabilities. So as an IT manager, head of IT, IT director, I've got to make sure that we have a strong operating model in there, strong operation management practices, and that we're managing things in operations to and also taking advantage of business capabilities. So that's really important, and you'll see that in the model later on in the slide deck. Enhanced technology integration. So by doing these practices, by following the steps, you're going to achieve better technology integration, because the way you're going to approach it is going to be improved. You're also building a vehicle for innovation and change, and that is one of the modules that we're going to be talking about later. Having a structured approach to delivery around business initiatives, and I call it business initiatives rather than project or program management because of the agile purists out there, but we'll talk about a bit more about that later. And then obviously you've got the agility to pivot and react to markets. This is one of the things that businesses want to be able to do. They want to be agile. They want to be agile businesses to be able to react to those threat or opportunities that come along. And then obviously there's savings and increased revenue, increased performance across the business, which you should be seeing through the process of business transformation and digital transformation anyway. And then also you've got to be able to sustain it and then ever evolve that going forward. Next slide, please, Sam. So if we talk about the approach, so the people process technology approach has been, it's not a new concept. It's been around for a number of years. It started off in the 1960s with a guy called Harold Lovett, who wrote a paper on organization change in industry. Then that had a renaissance with someone called Bruce Snyder in 1999, who used this approach in implementing security. And then Gartner came along in 2017 with a guy called Andrew White, who stuck the data element within it. But basically, it's a way of approaching business initiatives and operations from starting with people. And, you know, ideas start with people. If we take a production line, we take the Model T Ford. Henry Ford came up with this idea to build this car. He built it with people. The people put processes together, refined those processes, put the production lines together, and then brought technology within those production lines to automate that production. increase production performance. And as you build more cars over the years, you make that data, and from that data you gain better ways of actually producing that product or service. So you get better business insights and informed decision making. Next slide, please, Sam. So the golden triangle, this is what it's originally called, which is just basically three elements of people, process, technology. Then Gartner came in with the data element. If we just go to the next build. And you can see the data element that's in the middle of the triangle now, which gives a good representation of its people, process, technology, and the data's is in the middle, because at the moment its data is king. What I wanted to achieve with these steps, putting them together, is a single pane of glass, one infographic showing the different steps that you have to go through to achieve or help achieve a successful digital transformation. Next, please, Sam. So what I did is I came up with 5 core business modules, and they really go over what we've addressed in the first slides already. Business engagement, having that strong business engagement internally and to your customers, to your suppliers, to your partners, internal teams, between business units, putting those forums in place, having those strong communication strategies. Oh, we've gone ahead. That's it. You can cut that bit out. So if we go back to those
yeah, apologies, bear with me 1 second.
No problem. There we go. So yeah, having that the good communication strategy, those communication plans, and how you communicate with those different business units, really important. Then you've got the strategy element of it, which is basically your vision, the reason for being there, your purpose as a company. That translating down into your mission and then into your strategic objectives, which then cascade down into your separate business units. Moving on to number 3, you have your operational models. So you have your overarching operation model from a company perspective. Then you have your individual operation models within your various departments, whether it be HR, finance, sales, IT. But you will have an operation model within that, and they will be doing their own translation of that strategic roadmap that's higher up in point 2. Number 4 is your enterprise architecture. If you have a mature enterprise architecture, you should be referencing that. If you don't, if you have that hairboard architecture, that's what you should be aiming for. All of those other 4 points, including number 5, feed into the enterprise architecture. So that's a great tool and a great asset moving forward once you've done the transformation exercise to help you sustain that model going forward. And then obviously the business initiative delivery is how you deliver that initiative, how you take innovation, how you then organize and actually deliver that and realize it in an operation environment, and then evolve that going forward. So next slide, please, Sam. So what I put together was the golden pyramid, which is an extension from the people, process, technology. Now, I didn't set out to do this, but having those 5 modules and then doing the research, the pyramid fits perfectly on top. And I thought, well, this is great. I'm onto something here. I'm going to call it the golden pyramid, because what it's saying is you have those 5 core modules, and then you have people, process, technology, and data, and you have to employ across every one. Now, if you cycle through that, you'll see that they will change color, and then that will lead us onto the sustainability life cycle, which is the next slide. So what I wanted to do is take that pyramid and then show how that interacts in a life cycle, and then how you can sustain that as a model going forward within your organizations. So you can see on that diagram there that you've got interactions. It's not a waterfall flow. It's an iterative where you're forever interacting with the different parts of the base of that pyramid. So your business engagement is interacting and aligning with your strategy, with your enterprise architecture, and you're coming up with these business problems, and that's what's spurring these business initiatives to drive innovation into an operation environment, and then the whole thing comes back on itself as it evolves. So it's a continuous model and sustainability life cycle, which I've tried to illustrate there to give you the view, an overall picture. Next slide. So I just wanted to put the TGP in practice. So you have a like a typical PMBOK delivery life cycle there. What I've done is I've put realization and evolution on the end because I've stretched my business initiative module to incorporate that, so it's the complete end to end. So if you cycle through this, and we go step by step. So if you do this first step, so we're going to take the family. If you pause there, and dad goes off, and the family needs a car, and dad goes off and just buys a sports car. Next button, Sam. So what happens is, because the family wasn't consulted, you've got something that wasn't fit for purpose, that increases total cost of ownership. And the last button gives you poor return on investment. If you cycle one more time, Sam, what's happened is dad went straight into the execution phase. I've seen this time and time again when I've got my whiteboard and I've got my teams in front of me and I've drawn this up on the board. And before I've even finished, my managers have said, what we've done is we've crashed straight into the execution part of the life cycle. We haven't done the conception, initiation, or planning work. Now, for those agile purists out there, just because you implement something like this, it doesn't make it bureaucratic. But you have to go through any artifact that helps you realize an initiative through delivery that adds value. So if there's any artifact that will bring value to a project, that will help govern that project, then it's vital you do that. Sam, if you cycle again, please. And again. So if you cycle through all the way to the car, and one more, that's it. So what we've done is we're using the triangle there, and we're going through those different steps within the triangle to produce what we actually need within a family car. So we've gone through the conception stage, we've gone through initiation, follow me with this, Sam, planning, execution, we've gone into transition. Transition is showing the success criteria, what we're going to take into operations. Once it hits operations, we're going to realize what the family wanted in their original specs for the car. And then we're going to take it into evolution. So when that car is being driven for the 1 to 2 years, they're already thinking ahead of what that next car is going to look like. But they're also evolving how they use that car. The children are getting older. They're not using the seats anymore. They're sticking a tow bar on. They're going on camping trips. So they're continuously evolving the use of that model through the use of the TGP pyramid. Next slide. So I wanted to give you, and if you pause there for a second, I wanted to give you more of an overview of why it's really important to have strong enterprise architecture and an operations model within business transformation. And this goes back to the comments which Sam put on the LinkedIn as a prelude to this around we're all Scrum Masters. And there was a story when I was in one of the bigger companies I've worked at, where the program manager came in to us, project manager, and I was the project lead at the time, and said, well, the project's not quite running properly, so we want to be agile. So tomorrow I want you all to come in and be Scrum Masters. Which I looked around the room at my other 2 PMs and thought, this is crazy. So if you go one more cycle, Sam, press the next button. I posted an article on LinkedIn and basically said, if you paint the car red, it's not going to make it go faster. So if you change one element of the company, it's not going to make it agile. And the amount of times I've seen companies bring in agile methodology, or well, it's agile principles, because agile isn't a methodology, but that's one to argue later. But bring agile principles in and then think that the whole company is going to become agile and be able to have that agility by definition. You don't, because you've got to go across the whole business, hence me putting this golden pyramid together. This slide also was inspired by an article that I read on Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton when they were both racing for Mercedes in between the years of 2013 and 2016. which saw Lewis Hamilton take 2 world titles, F1 titles, but Nico Rosberg in 2016 took the title from Hamilton by the narrowest of margins, and that's because he had a better operating model. But Lewis was also part of the enterprise architecture because he was part of the racing team as a whole. So they had that Lewis's data there as well as Rosberg's data. So if you go to click one more. So it's not only the driver that's gonna make that car go faster. It's going to be your brakes. It's going to be your tires. It's going to be a good engine. But it's also going to be the things that make up the team, like the team owner, the team manager, the crew, the pit crew, the engine specialist, the mechanic, the race experts, the analytics, the sponsors, the PR, the marketing, the procurement, and the trainer. Right, pause there, Sam. That's your operating model. That's the entity that will make that car. And if you click one more time, Sam, win the race. So that gets you one race. Then you've got to repeat that month after month after month. And that's the sustainability part. And that's why I've put that life cycle together. And that's why it's not just a one-time hit with the golden pyramid. It's something that you can use in your business going forward to sustain that. And one thing I will say, it's not a replacement. It's not reinventing the wheel. It aligns with TOGAF. It aligns with ITIL. It aligns with PMBOK. And you can use it as a high-level guide, a guided North Star to guide you with what elements you need to employ throughout digital transformation. So if we go to the last slide, these are just basically the takeaway and the summary from this. People, understand your people across the business and their disciplines. The process, understand the business operational processes and why they exist. Technology, don't go technology first. It's going to cost you money. Know why you need it in the first place. Know your why. Do that strategic alignment. Data, understand your data, leverage the best route to insight. Business engagement, establish that strong business and customer communications, have that communication strategy. Next one, Sam. Strategy, obviously translate and align to the vision, mission, and strategic objectives. Operation model, structure and implement the appropriate operational elements within all your teams. And also understand your EA domains. EA domains being your business domain, your data domain, your applications domain, and your technology domain, and your overarching compliance and security elements within that as well. And you can also add in there regulatory and legal. But then also having a great delivery structure. That can be agile, it can be waterfall, it can be anything, as long as you've got that well communicated, tailored structure. And I mean tailor because every business is different. But basically that sums up the presentation. Few glitches in there, but I hope that's understood.
Yeah, thanks for that, Stuart. My glitches completely. A few sort of errors there at my end, so apologies for that, but definitely my fault and not yours. Absolutely brilliant, Stuart. I really, really enjoyed that, and I love the car analogy, the racing car analogy. I think that kind of sums it up really, really well. A common theme of a lot of our events and a lot of our subjects, a lot of the challenges are, it isn't technology. It is about your people and putting those people first. And a lot of people say, don't call them projects anymore. Call them products. We're developing a product, for the business and for the people, and put people at the heart of that product. And almost, put the user first. So that's a very kind of, I know it's a very American thing when we talk about products and apps, but I think that's probably more prevalent nowadays than it ever has been. So we're gonna put out some to the floor and ask some questions. But I've got a question for you, Stuart. For you, what do you see as the biggest challenge when embarking on this kind of project? What's the biggest challenge that you've sort of come across for successful engagement?
it comes down to people. Because if you PMBOK starts at people and stakeholder engagement, and if you don't get that buy-in, business buy-in, and you don't get people behind you, or if you don't get that senior leadership team, and I've been on a few senior leadership team backing you, then you're dead in the water, and it essentially ends up something called a skunk project, or something that goes under radar. So that's any size organization, that's always the biggest challenge. Make sure that you've got strong communications and buy-in from the companies.
And is there a approach the same, depending on the size of the organization, whether they're big or small? I imagine there's quite a few different challenges there, maybe.
Yeah, there are definitely different challenges. The approach is the same, but by design, a bigger monolithic company is not agile. So you're going to have more challenges the bigger the organization, and also the sector that you're in. Public sectors, to my experience, is a little bit more siloed, so there's a different approach in there. But that doesn't mean that this won't work. It just means you just take a slightly different approach, where you would maybe do like Lockheed Martin did when they built the U-2 spy plane. They actually took a team out of the company and made them autonomous and away from that bureaucracy, and then they produced that product and service at speed. Once they'd done it, well, and it was the time to value was really quick, they then scaled that out. And what you would do in a bigger organization is you wouldn't try and do an in-place upgrade, which is like an old term, an engineering term. You would basically make something small and agile, migrate over, and then decommission from the business. And the more that you do that, you scale out, you don't scale up.
Got you. That's really interesting. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and then I've got a question already from Mark Reed. Mark, thanks for joining us. I think this is your first event today. Mark asks, and I think you might be able to see the question there, but Mark's question is, why do you think there is a lot of skepticism about the success of DX initiatives with the C-suite?
I think my experience from C-suite is, and I'm going to be a little bit derogatory, but when just to give you a bit of background, when I walked into, and I'm not going to mention, but one of the times I was came in to stabilize an IT department, I was given a book called The Four, and I think we discussed this before. It's basically Amazon, Facebook, Apple, and Google. And what you get is executives read these books and they go, business digital transformation, it's what everyone's doing, I think we should do it as well. And what they they don't approach it in the right way. And then what they do is they basically say, we've got to do it, and they do it half-heartedly, and they don't have that communication. They haven't gone through those steps, and they basically use internal teams to try and produce something that it's just not going to work because they don't know their capabilities. So when these initiatives don't work, and a lot of the time they don't because they've been approached in this way, then that's when the skepticism builds, because they're not getting any return on investment. They're not seeing these things being delivered. And so they then skip on to the next thing, or the next title, or the next book that someone passes around at the golf club. And then they're on to that. But we've really, and I think this is where strong leadership comes in, because as a project manager, you're doing a disservice if you're being a yes man. And I've never been a yes man, and I've had a target on my back quite a bit as well. But that's when I go into an engagement, there is as much risk for me to assess whether an engagement can actually work. That's why I would always do a maturity assessment around enterprise architecture, sit down with the C-suite and say, does this align with your strategic objectives? Do you have the capabilities within your company to be able to deliver this? If you don't, there's no problem, but we use outside people to do that. But another problem I found is they chuck things over the fence. So with COVID-19, we're seeing a lot of companies bring in services back inside, and that's putting more pressure on internal teams. So what then happens is they've got extra work to do, and then they fail even more. But yeah, it's just about having those conversations, and sometimes difficult conversations with those senior execs.
So that comes back down to getting buy-in from the senior level C-suite team right at the start. Okay.
Yeah.
Mark Evans is on the call with us today, and Mark was just sort of asking a question there. So Mark took a global professional services company to complete serverless model in 2014. Why is it all taking so long for people to get on board? My contention is that senior IT people who don't want to rock the boat and jeopardize their pensions.
I think he's just
what's your view of
that? Well, it's that there are conversations that and I think it is a lot to do with people not wanting to rock the boat. I've got well, my outlook on life is that I will always be moving from job to job. My passion, my vision is to help people make IT less complicated. And some people are lifers, and there's nothing wrong with that, but some people don't like change. I've been in a meeting where when I mean, I don't know if who's on this call remembers Novell and Novell Gateway and before Windows, and we had someone in the meeting that actually turned his back on the meeting and refused to speak Windows because he hated Windows, and it's and obviously working in environments like that, marketing, advertising and marketing, you get a lot of Macintosh, and people don't like Windows because they want a Mac because it looks cool. But yeah, the reason why this stuff takes too long is because they're not engaging. They're not following those steps. They're not looking at the different parts of the business. It's not about buying a piece of technology off the shelf. The amount of times I go into businesses and the CEO would turn around to me and say, Stuart, it goes like this, Stuart, what technology will enable me to do this? And I go, no, stop that. What's your business problem? Wind it back. What are your people doing? What's the problem you're trying to fix? What are the processes around that? And it might not even need any technology. It just might need a better management or better leadership, And I'm not a snake oil salesman. If it doesn't need fixing, don't fix it. Just improve the people.
Good. Yeah, no, love that. Howard, do you want to ask your question? Do you want to come off mute and say hello?
Sure thing, Sam.
No.
Thanks. Yeah,
there you are. I think
it just takes a while.
We might have a little bit of a delay here. Sorry.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you, Howard.
Okay, cool. Stuart, you were talking about some of the difficulties of getting change into an organisation and getting buy-in from C-suite. My experience has been an MVP has often been a way to not only get a team moving, but also then get some buy-in from a C-suite. I wondered what your thoughts on that were.
MVP is great. I mean, I've worked a lot with the Americans, and when I used to say MVP, and just to reiterate, you mean minimum viable product, yeah? Yeah. So when speaking to my boss in Chicago, he said, "Well, what's that got to do with our most valuable player in basketball?" I was thinking, no, it's viable product. I think that is the way to go. I mean, I don't know if you've read books from Eliyahu Goldratt called the Critical Chain or The Goal, and the Phoenix Project and the Unicorn Project. These are the books, that like pave the way. It's if you've got that monolithic business, you're not going to get anything out of it. Get the teams there, get MVP to market. Time to value is a key here. You want to realize something really quickly. I'm building an app at the moment with a partner. We're not going to do over the top here. I mean, a website, for instance, is a great MVP example, because you can just get a page up, and then you could maybe make it into a shop, or then you could maybe put payment on it. But you're getting MVP, so you're getting something up that's returning value from the off. So yes, and also doing a pilot like that then proves they've got something tangible in their hands to say yes, that's worth investing in. Does that answer your question?
Good. Sorry, yes, absolutely. Thanks.
I'm going to pick on somebody, and I always pick on him, so he should be prepared for this now. Andy, how are you doing? Have you got any questions for Stuart?
I posted in one which was to do with if they'd offered you just 10 projects or 20 projects, would you have picked it up rather than 100?
No. I was scared. I was like a rabbit in headlights. I'd said to Sam when I arrived in the car park, they have pods, and you go down a pod, and then it's like walking into Space Odyssey 2001, and they have like these big blast doors with these numbers on. The place is awe-inspiring. It is really, really fantastic place. But I would definitely go back in there now, but not right at this moment because the car industry is not that great.
Yeah,
but it was very impressive. Very impressive.
Yeah.
They also sold the building.
Have they? So I would definitely not go down there now.
Yeah. There was one question actually, which was to do with what's the sort of, I mean, you mentioned, an MVP, a website, a page on a website as being a thing. What is the normal scale of the digital transformation which you've been asked to actually undertake?
So it can be anything. I've done mobile apps, which was like a point of sale app for an advertising and media company, or it's been a flagship office that I've opened in London, which is a complete full stack because my background is actually architecture, so I can actually design cloud infrastructure or networks. So we're talking about when I moved Channel 5, that was 5 offices and their whole broadcast division down to Lower Thames Street, and Lower Thames Street was basically a bare floor. So I was dealing with people from the electricity board bringing in submains with massive armored cable 1 minute to picking the color of the carpets, and even the door furniture on the ladies' toilets. So yeah, I mean, it's really, some of these projects are really monstrous, but having great people, and it's the communication and the partners I've used, and I've had some of the same partners for 16 years. Having those on board and having strong communication, but making sure that whenever I do a project or an engagement, I sit down with those people. And I think the key for any digital transformation is don't chuck it over the fence, own it. The last building that I was on, I was only the project manager for the digital aspects of it, and there was someone doing the building. There was, before I would be the top program manager, and what I noticed is this person never had any notes on her. And she never answered any emails, but she would turn up to every meeting and just bark orders at people and disappear. And it was just basically delegation and chucking over the fence. And I was thinking, this is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
I think, can you hear me okay? Yeah. Hi, Stuart. It's
Hi.
Mark here.
How you doing, Mark?
But I think what's really interesting about that example you just given in terms of digital transformation, it comes back to kind of your second or third slide around what is digital transformation. And I think this is the kind of, and actually the point I was making about the C-suite is almost the digital bit like scares the living daylights out of them, because in essence it could be an office move that's part of the transformation and part of the digital transformation. And the lines get very blurred, and almost, I think, it's kind of the tricky thing because it's actually transformation, isn't it? It is a viable product.
Yep.
Whether it takes 2 weeks or 2 months, hopefully not too much longer than that, but actually it's transformation, and that's got to sit within your golden pyramid model because it's still about people, how they interact with that solution. So I think this is what the really interesting thing is, that actually it's almost like digital transformation scares the living daylights, but actually it's transformation, and we need to kind of break that down into bite-sized chunks so that the C-suite can see deliverables coming off the car analogy, the production line. And and I think that's kind of that's kind of fascinating thing, that how these different delivery initiatives kind of come together. And they've got to come together, as part of your model, so that they can see it in its entirety, but they can see how each bit fits into it.
And that's really, and some of the points there that is really relevant. I was reading an article on the Financial Times just before I came on, actually, about how companies perceive digital transformation. And how big and monolithic companies are. I think with regards to the C-suite, they just like things in boxes, don't they? They like to know that it's safe. They know that they can get it off the shelf and then just put it in and it's going to work. I think I've read a lot around why is it called digital transformation, because if you think of digital watches, that was 1980, so why have we called it digital transformation? But it's also around target operating models and cloud operating models. And I coined one the other day, remote operating model, which some marketer will probably latch onto and start marketing because we're all
I'm just writing that
remotely
down
at the moment. Yeah, but I was having a chat with one of my consultant friends from one of the big consultancies in London, and he was going on about a cloud operating model or a COM, and I said, well, it's still an operating model, whether it's digital, cloud, remote, COM, target. It's still an operating model, which is exactly what you said. It's transformation. And if you think what drives transformation, and another article I read this morning, which I had to bring up today, is when people were surveyed, who within their company is leading digital transformation? Is it your CEO? Is it your CTO? Or is it COVID-19? A lot of people circled C. It's COVID-19, because a lot of people, when we were sent home to work remotely, the first thing I thought about is Virgin and BT going to be able to cope with this extra traffic? The second thing I thought about is who's changing all those on-premise tapes that our data's being held on, because if you don't have a good business continuity DR strategy, then
take the switch the tapes over.
Yeah, exactly. so I think a lot of people are reacting, and it's digital transformation isn't anything, or as you say, transformation isn't anything on its own. Something is driving it. Something is driving it.
No, I think it's fascinating. It's kind of fascinating thing, and and the definitions, people get locked into the definitions, and the C-suite, as you rightfully say, Stuart, the C-suite get hold of a book, and somebody said to them, or they've met somebody at dinner that said, oh yeah, digital transformation, that's what we need to do, and then all of a sudden it's kind of, let's get on with it. Not forgetting the principles, as you say, that you've outlined in your model.
And I think that the conversations we're having, and it's no disrespect to IT leaders, but the IT department's evolving. So I've come up through the ranks, help desk, in third line, into management, into senior management. But what we're going to see going forward is those specialisms. I don't need those specialisms in my teams anymore, especially when you've got I and PaaS and infrastructure as service, platforms as service, and you've got everything out there. Before COVID, I was saying all you need is 2 diverse fat internet pipes going into your building, and everything else is as a service. And when you're distributing services around the world, if you're using cloud technology, you've got to look at regulation, especially with Brexit, where you're putting your data, but also latency. If you're running applications from in London, you're going to have to put some entity. If you've got something down in Asia, we put it in Australia, because you could physically see when people clicked on drop downs, it'd take 3 to 5 seconds for the drop down to come down
100%,
or to get the data. So all of this needs to be considered. But using that pyramid model that I've drawn up, it just basically takes you through the steps and say, look, we need to consider this.
One of the things you've got to watch out for now as well with the remote working model that we're all work from home, is you've got to look at the GDPR effects, your risk effects, backup. There's a whole load of legislative effects that you've got to be wary of. Which everybody just went work from home. Do that, and then it was like, oh, we'll complete the paperwork later. Security, antivirus, the whole lot, the whole works.
Does anybody work for the government online at the moment?
Do you mean is what here or at all?
We all work for the government.
Only on a Friday.
I was going to say that sounded like a question I was once asked when somebody said, "How many people work here?" And I said, "Well, there's 1,000 people who come into the office, and about 10% of them work here."
Well, you can see the challenges to government, and obviously I won't get political on this.
Don't mention spreadsheets.
Do you know, I nearly did. It was embarrassing. I was shouting at Alexa, and I had to turn it off in the end.
Who had 15 minutes for the first mention of pivots anyway?
I think I only used it once. This This is one of my best tools and my best investments over lockdown as a board. And a lot of people, when I do conference calls, they get board envy. But I actually used this on a stand-up the other day. But getting the right people in the room and actually taking them through, I do something called types of work, which looks at workflows. And we just basically say to teams, what do you do in a day? And they just basically list it. And I did it with one engagement, and we had it big old lists of like 20 different things. And I said, right, stick this across these columns. And it was planned work, unplanned work, change, and projects. And most of the things were in the unplanned work. And then I said, well, now you've got a visual representation as why you cannot deliver these projects because you don't have the capacity. And they went, So there's some great tools, and getting the right people in the room and having one of those behind you is a great tool to actually do that. And that's, again, business engagement.
And you can sniff the pens as well.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks for that, Andy. And thanks, Mark, for your input there. Just a quick shout out for the best background I think I've seen on Zoom so far. Lionel, come on. You need to be sat a little bit to the left or to the right, though. That's it. Fantastic. The Millennium Falcon there. Brilliant. Has anybody else got any other questions for Stuart? Because I think that the presentation for me was brilliant. I've had to switch over, by the way, because I had the laptop working and it was the bandwidth was low. It was on the Wi-Fi. Now I'm plugged in, Ethernet cables and everything. Has anybody else got any questions for Stuart? Anything that they'd like to ask? Perhaps clarify something that was brought up in the presentation?
I've got a question, Sam.
Hi, James. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Hi, Stuart. Lovely to meet you.
How you doing, James?
We should have a chat outside of this because I think we've got a few overlaps with what we've
done. Definitely.
Anyway, my question, I totally agree with you. I've done digital transformation myself. And it's always about the people and the engagement, because if the people aren't bought into what you're trying to do, it's going to fail before it's even left the blocks. My question to you is, have you ever done a project that has failed not because of people or engagement, but because of something else? And if so, what was that?
No. No, I don't think so. To be perfectly honest with you, it's always been around people. I've had some. What I tend to do is on the engagements is go in and assess it, and I've really been strict and I've been lucky. I've had some great mentors, but I've also had some live fire exercises where there was one time that I brought down a finance server, but I actually stayed behind and until 2 a.m. to get it fixed. But that was in my early days. But I tend not to take on an engagement unless I've done that maturity piece, because part of my project management training and experience and mentorship is I'm doing you a disservice if I can say I can deliver the project when I know I can't. And it's putting those governance boundaries around it. But no, the only monumentous ones that have failed have been around people. And there was one, and I'm not going to tell you which one it was, but I'd done another engagement that delivered a cloud environment, and we did it for I think it took about 14 months, and it was about £1.6 million. And then I went to another engagement, and it was up in the millions. I won't tell you what it was, but it was already 2 years late, and I went in to assess it, and then I resigned about a month later because I just said, look, this is not going to work. But I kept in contact with the project team, and I have regular beer calls with them, and we do this lockdown thing. They just came off it, and that was 4 years later. And I said, did you actually deliver it? And they went, no. So I'm very careful when I go into different engagements that I ask the right questions. By the way, don't go back 4 years on my CV. This is way back. I'm not actually going to give you the year, otherwise you'll guess who it is. So that's just putting a caveat in that presentation.
Many years ago, I was actually told if your solution relies on somebody in the warehouse at the lowest level actually doing something to make it all work, it better be easier for them to get it right than it is for them to get it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
yeah.
You know, it is. It's down to people most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that, Andy. Thanks for that, James. Really appreciate that. Maria, you have a question.
Yeah, I have to bail in a couple of minutes. So.
No, that's all right. Don't worry.
And I appreciate all your American comments. As a dual national, I get it from both sides. So I noticed that you mentioned agile a couple of times with a few little remarks. So as someone who's currently reading The Phoenix Project, which is amazing, and I wish I had seen it earlier. I'm like,
brilliant book.
I know this. Have you found it more difficult with a company that looks like The Phoenix Project coming in, or one that's actually already got an agile structure in place? And I ask this just because you mentioned agile and their perception of things a couple of times.
Yeah, I think that companies that want to move over to agile, there's a lack of understanding what it is, and I think that there's a great, and I think that everybody should go and look at this video, Google it after. It's called Agile is Dead, and I forget the name of the guy who presents it, but it's Agile isn't dead, and Agile is a great way. It's a set of principles. It's Kanban. It's extreme programming. It's lean. It's agile project management, and it's about looking at the engagement and saying, well, what's best for that? How can I best deliver that? Now, I'm not going to necessarily use agile if I'm delivering a project or a head office, which I know things are going to be sequential. But I'm also working with a web company where he uses waterfall to get websites out, but it still works. And that just goes to show that it's kind of been, and you'll see this from the video, it's kind of been captured as a sales and marketing ploy just to basically sell you. And this is another thing for the C-suite that they rabbit in headlights to go, oh, agile, yeah, get agile in. We're going to be an agile business. Agile is great. I mean, I've got some. I mean, one of the guys, he wished me luck. When I worked at Awin, he was a lean delivery agent, and he took me through Kanban and the definition of done. And I interviewed for someone quite recently. For an engagement, and all they got stuck on was KPIs, and I think KPIs are a little bit of a sort of smokes and mirrors, because I rang up my project management mate afterwards, and I said, right, if I said to you that a door is a deliverable and only 50% of that door was delivered, that means that the frame's in but the door's not on, then there's no value in that, is there? So if I reported back a KPI of 50% done, that's not giving any value back to the company. That door isn't a door until the door's hung and it's closed and it's stopping the air coming in. You know, it's so it doesn't really matter what you employ, but you must have people on board. You must have that strong engagement. You must have those defined processes. So when I'm running Scrum teams, I'm doing daily stand-ups. I'm doing that estimation with them. I'm doing the board work. I'm doing those retrospectives. And it works, because I've done that initial planning, and I know that that's strategically aligned. And I think a lot of the disconnection comes when you've got product managers who don't really understand the strategic alignment to the business, just forcing these features through to the teams and overloading them, and then you just get all this bloat, and then you don't get anything delivered. But yeah, I think to answer your question, I think that my kind of jokey comments about agile is just, I just seen it really implemented really poorly. With regards to the companies that have got it in place, like the Awins, and I mentioned them because they were a great company to work for. They did it really well. Does that answer your question? Good.
Thank you, Maria.
Let's not confuse being agile with don't need a plan.
Exactly.
So agile is the ability to get back on the horse. Yeah. Yes. And
if anyone tells you any different, then they don't understand the complete end to end. It's you get the shard was designed on the back of a napkin in a restaurant. Obviously, had a better plan to build it, but a plan could be something verbal. A plan could be on the back of a fact packet. It could be a proper project charter. But it does. Every engagement I've gone into, I've always put some retrospective governance in, even if the people who put the project together have said, "Oh," and I've had this, where they go, "Oh, it's going to be a light touch governance. You only need a risk log." And that alarm bells ring, and I go, right, okay, I'll stick a quick rationale. I normally do an RFP or something, and so I've got something to go back to, because then a lot of these companies use the blame and burn culture, where they say, well, why is it costing this? Why haven't we got it out? And they say, well, because so and so didn't turn up for a meeting. Well, that's your fault, isn't it? So you've got to put that governance in place.
Consultant, somebody bought in at the last minute to share the blame.
Yes, oh, that's happened. That's happened.
I think I was going to say, with Agile, I think everyone focuses on the product owner being the sort of the god of everything, but it's actually the project sponsor, the person that's looking at the high level strategy and saying, you're delivering the product, but is that actually what we want? You know,
yes.
But back to the car, we want a car that fits the family, not a car that goes really fast, because someone mentioned speed in a planning session, and that's what we focused on.
Yes.
And that's where things often go wrong.
Yeah,
you
totally agree.
Try adding performance as the last thing that you do. You know, you don't take a milk float and then try and put it into a Formula One race.
No, fit for purpose.
Yeah, you absolutely need the right governance around the Agile process. If you don't have that, then it will fall over every time. And you can bring in Kanban and everything else, but it won't make any difference. And that's where you need the C-suite engagement.
Yeah, totally agree.
Listen, I've loved today. Really, really good. Thank you, Stuart. We're just coming up to 6:30 nearly, or just over now. So we've been going an hour. I really appreciate everybody attending today, and I hope everybody's found this quite informative. For me, it's given me a new kind of, I guess, angle on digital transformation projects, and it helps me as a recruiter. You know, that's what I do. And I talk to companies about digital transformation projects, and this really does help me to better understand the simple processes that companies have to put in place. Again, the big thing that keeps coming back is people and engagement, and communication. So it's been great. Thank you for today, Stuart. Really appreciate you taking the time out.
My pleasure. Great meeting you all.
Yeah, thank you, Andy. Thank you, Howard. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, James. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Sam, that you've muted yourself and turned your video off. Listen, we're going to be back next week. I'm not sure what we've got next week yet. I've got a couple of people coming back to me who are really interested in delivering something for us. If you've got any ideas of what we should be talking about, then please let me know. I think over the next few weeks, we've potentially got something around AI in healthcare, which I'm talking to a director of a very big global consultancy right now about that very subject. And also talking about digital transformation in the NHS. You know, I think for years and years and years, obviously very pertinent at the moment, a lot is going on in the NHS right now. And obviously the thing that a lot of people are aware of is obviously COVID. And actually, there is a big push for consolidation of services in the NHS. And one of those services is pathology. So about 3 or 4 years ago, the NHS, I know Andy's kind of raising his hands here, the NHS basically looked at pathology as a service that could be transformed, but actually consolidated around the regions. That's going to happen.
20 years.
Yeah. No, listen, it's being delayed. It was something that was talked about many years ago. 4 years ago, the government put in something in place for hub and spoke. This week, Southeast Pathology was announced, and a company called SynLab was announced as the preferred bidder. That was done back in January, delayed in COVID, just announced this week, and that's a £2.2 billion project. That's working so well now. Actually, the COVID lighthouse projects are doing so well, and it's been proven that the COVID lighthouse projects are being more efficient because of that consolidation. So that's going to push that model through. It's going to happen in radiology. It's going to happen in electronic patient records, and we're going to see it more often. We're going to be talking about that over the next few weeks, and how digital technology and transformation is going to overhaul the NHS. But actually, they're going to have to start with architecture, because if you're going to transfer an image from one place to another, you need the architecture and the bandwidth to be able to handle that. And at the moment, they're nowhere near there right now.
It's like Stuart said, they've got to start with the people.
They have, absolutely. But it's an interesting topic. And, listen, we want these events not to be kind of just blowing smoke up each other's backsides. We want it to be a bit of a debate. So it's all very well kind of having this echo chamber of you're great, brilliant, really, really agree with you. But we want some debate. We want some different opinions. So please go away. Your homework for the next few days is come back to me with things that you think that we want to be talking about that's going to push the envelope a little bit. But there you go, Bob.
Very interested to hear about your thoughts on NHS digital transformation, because I've spent 2, 3, 4 years banging my head against the spike, which I especially had embedded in a wall against that particular problem. Fascinating.
There you go. Okay, so listen, we are gonna handle these kind of different subjects. Thank you everyone today for joining us. Really appreciate it. We will have the slides available on the LinkedIn group tomorrow, if that's okay, Stuart. And also, we've mentioned a load of books, and you've mentioned quite a few significant people around lean manufacturing methods and processes. So we'll have those links to those authors and those books as well. I think that'd be quite interesting. Yep. And also, for those of you that have, we've talked about the collaboration circle, the networking group that we are building right now. Currently, we're about 150 people who have all said that they want to be part of that group. They want to network, they want to collaborate. We are a few weeks away from launching a website that will actually bring everyone together. I just wanted to let people know where we're up to. If you know of anybody that would want to join the group, please let me know, and I can have a chat with them and connect with them on LinkedIn. Right now, the LinkedIn group is there for you to share those ideas, collaborate, and sort of come together, really. So, listen, thanks everyone today. Really appreciate it. Lionel, where did you get that background from?
MS Teams backgrounds.
It's an MS Team, right? Okay, so we'll have a link to that as well on the group. Do you have to have a green screen for that?
No. It's just the Zoom default stuff.
Right? Okay. I'll be hooking up with you to find out more about that. Listen, thank you everyone. Really appreciate it, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks very much, guys. Take care. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.